Hello everyone, my name is Clara, and today we are reading all about Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac. Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac, the story of Abraham's faith in God for children, based on Genesis 15, 1 through 6, 17, 15 through 19, 21, 1 through 7, and 22, 1 through 18. And it's written by Joanne Bader and illustrated by Ed Cooler. Do you know? Long ago, in a distant land, there lived a righteous man, which righteous is that they are so good that they're more than good. They are righteous. He had great faith in God the Lord. He knew God had a plan. This man, whose name was Abraham, was blessed with many things, like servants, cattle, sheep, goats, and gold and silver rings. There's probably the servants and sheep. There's Abraham. He had a faithful, loving wife, and Sarah was her name. She had no children of her own. It made her feel great shame. God promised this to Abraham. Someday, your family will number more than the stars above or sand that's near the sea. How can that be? Thought Abraham. We have no children now. I'm sure we are far too old for kids, but I believe God's vow. And a vow is a promise or committing to this promise that Abraham is going to have many children or descendants, some people would say, which means that there's you, and then there are going backwards. It's like you, and then your parents, and then your grandparents, and their parents had parents, and their parents had parents. And just like in the future, it's us, and then our children, then our our grandchildren, then our great-grandchildren, then our great-great-great-grandchildren, and yeah. Then one day, God appeared to Abraham, he said, "Quite soon your wife will bear a son. He'll follow in your stead." Within a year, Isaac was born, just as God said he'd be. So Abraham and Sarah, too, were filled with joy and glee. And there's Sarah, Abraham, Isaac, and yeah, they look pretty old to have a son, but God told them that they were going to have a son, and he provided one. They knew that they'd been richly blessed. Their thankful hearts were glad. They watched their dear son Isaac grow into a fine young lad. It was not long before God spoke to Abraham once more. "Take Isaac to a special place he's never been before. I'll lead you to a mountain high. You'll build an altar there and offer him as sacrifice," which means that he is giving up something, someone, Isaac, that he truly, dearly loved. And the fact that God finally he did provide a son to Abraham, but now he's being taken up as sacrifice, I feel like would be hard on Abraham, but we'll see what happens next. "Your son, your much-loved heir." So the next morning, Abraham said to his son, "Arise, we'll worship God up on a mount. Let's pack up our supplies." For several days they traveled on before they saw the place. They built an altar to the Lord high up in a small place. When Isaac looked around, he cried, "We do not have a lamb." "God will provide our offering," responded Abraham. There's Isaac, Abraham. They're building the altar, or a little place to offer sacrifices, usually back in the Old Testament. Wood was stacked on the altar first. Isaac laid on top. See it there? As Abraham took his knife, a voice called out, "No! Stop! No need to sacrifice your son. You proved your faith in me. See, in the bush there is a ram." So Isaac may go free. Oh, I bet that was a relief to Abraham. In fact, that now he doesn't have to sacrifice his son. They worshiped their father and son, and thankful the Lord above for all the blessings they've been given, for mercy, grace, and love. And that's the end of our story here today. Just wanted to go over what we learned here today. So God did promise to Abraham that he was going to have many descendants, which means he was going to have many children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc. And he was even given a son, Isaac. And later on, we learned that he was going to have to sacrifice Isaac, or Abraham was going to have to sacrifice Isaac for God. And while it is hard to sometimes do things as God commands, Abraham was still faithful and was going to trust God, and God saw that he was going to do the one thing that probably was the hardest thing for Abraham to do, and it proved to God that Abraham was faithful and didn't have to kill Isaac, which is great. And yeah, that's all we have here for today. Hope things are well, and yeah.